Here's a breaking news tonight. A federal contractor with top secret security clearance charged with leaking classified information about Russia's hacking of the election. I want to talk to you about all of this now with Congressman Jason Chaffetz, a Utah Republican who is the chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Soon to be former congressman.
Yes. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We're going to talk about that.
All right.
Hopefully we'll have time to talk about that. But I want to get your reaction to this breaking news now. This is a 25-year-old woman, a federal contractor charged for leaking classified materials to an online media outlet. Should she go to jail, you think?
There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. If you feel compelled to share information that's classified because you're concerned about the implications or how it's being used, there are legal ways in which you can have whistleblower protection and go to members of Congress or go to the committee, for instance, on oversight, and protect your legal rights and not get yourself into trouble. But just because you see something that is classified, you can't just hand that out like it's candy. And whether or not you mailed it or printed it, you're not allowed to do that. And yes, I do believe, regardless of the administration, they should put handcuffs on a person like that and they should go to jail. Now, I don't know if this allegation is true. Okay, I'm just reading a media report. But a contractor, a federal employee, cannot just take it upon themselves to bypass the classification system.
Congressman, do you think that in this environment where everything seems to be so partisan and so political that someone would even feel comfortable doing it the right way, as you say, with whistleblower protection?
We have hundreds of thousands of people with security clearances. And again, there's a right way to do it. There's a way to go to Congress and have that conversation, protect all your legal rights, and not have looming over this young woman what appears to be, at least on the initial read, she could go to jail for a significant amount of time.
In terms of this top secret NSA report, it supposedly deals with 2016 Russian military intelligence cyber attack on voting software. No evidence that any votes were affected, but the fact that they were targeting that and that there was a possibility that they could have been, is that hugely concerning?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it should concern everybody. Look, most of the elections are controlled by your local county clerk. So it's not really a federal role in administering an election. It does go down to the states, the lieutenant governors or the secretary of state, and then it goes down into your county. But let it be no mystery that the Russians have been doing. This is not the first election they probably looked at. It's probably not the last one they're going to look at. And it isn't just the Russians. So the fact that our government, through it, working with contractors, is paying attention to this and does have some evidence. Of course, Congress wants to know about that, but it also means they were probably doing their job in watching it.
When you look at this, there's been no evidence so far of collusion, and that's what
Correct.
the investigation is about. But do you think it makes it more important that we find out all things Russia and how much of an effect they had on the election?
Look, my friend and colleague Devin Nunes is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He's taken some heat on some things, but it was more than a year ago when he was out there beating the drum saying, let's worry about Russia. I'm critical of my Democratic colleagues. When Barack Obama was running for president and for re-election, and Mitt Romney said the biggest geopolitical threat to the United States of America is Russia, he was laughed at. I mean, the president kind of mocked him, saying the 1980s want their foreign policy back. Mitt Romney was actually right. We should have been paying more attention to that. And I don't think the 8 years during the Obama administration, remember, all this happened under his watch, that we were paying enough attention.
You don't think he did enough to stop it? Because during the election he said, I told him to cut it out. And I think his supporters will say is that he was concerned about affecting or appearing to put his thumb on the scale. Do you think that was...
Look, the president has to protect us against all enemies, foreign and domestic. He consistently downplayed the threat of Russia, and yet Russia was on the march, expanding their borders globally. I don't think he did enough then. But the counterintelligence activities, those types, were all minimized.
Would you say that this president should maybe not speak so glowingly sometimes about Russia, and that he should speak more forcefully against Russia than he does?
I mean, look, if you look at individual comments, maybe you and I would say things differently. But yes, and again, let's not lose focus. It's not just Russia, folks. It's a lot of other countries, too. And when you try to go and do everything digitally, there's a consequence.
But Russia appears to have had more influence than...
Oh, Russia's one of the most savvy. Look, corporate espionage, government espionage, trying to get involved in elections, these people have been doing this for decades.
Before too much time passes and we run out of time, let's talk about the former FBI testifying on Thursday. You've spoken to him recently, right?
I did.
What do you want to hear from him?
I think the first question is...
Well, first of all, can you share anything that you talked about?
It was a very short conversation. I always found him to be very collegial, but I did want him to come to the Oversight Committee. He's chosen first to go to the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Was there anything concerning that he said to you that would make
Here's
you
the one concerning thing. When the New York Times broke this story, they had not actually seen the documents. I haven't seen the documents. I'm not aware of anybody in Congress that has the documents.
Did you ask him about that?
And I did ask the director specifically, these documents that were in the New York Times article, do you have them or does the Department of Justice have them? And he would not answer that question, which I found kind of eyebrow raising. What is the answer? Where are these? Now, the Oversight Committee has asked for not just these documents related to a January 27th dinner with Donald Trump, but what about the Attorney General Loretta Lynch? What about Barack Obama? What about all other memos?
But that's not being investigated.
It has been investigated, but yes,
So
we are been investigated.
Did he tell you why he didn't want to answer your question about it?
No, and I respected his answer. I peppered that question to the Department of Justice. Their response is, well, now there's a special counsel involved. And that does complicate things because we don't want to impede that investigation. But at the same time, we believe Congress should be able to see these documents.
What do you want to hear from him then?
Well, if you don't have the documents, it's going to be very hard and difficult to him to question. I think one of the most difficult questions he has to answer is, why is it when he testified, I believe it was the first week of May, and before the Senate Judiciary Committee, he said that there had been no political interference. You have the current acting FBI director saying he's seen no evidence of any sort of political influence. So there's going to be a contradiction if he tries to go the other direction. But
so who do you believe more then? Because it appears from now, we don't know what he's going to say, that his testimony may be at odds with what the president says happened.
Right.
Who do you believe, the president, or do you believe the former director?
Well, again, you want to hear from both sides, but if there's a document sort of memorializing this, I want to see what that document says, and then how is it interpreted? Because it's a pretty high bar to suggest that there was an obstruction of justice or there was some sort of collusion or something like that. That's a very high bar.
Are you counting the days when you don't really have to deal with this as personal level as you do? Because you're, what, a month? How long?
Look,
how much longer do you
I
have?
love the engagement.
When's your end date?
June 30th is my last day. After 9 years or so in Congress, 8.5 years, it's time to hang up the cleats.
Does it, in your future, involve any, 3 letters or 4 letters, CNN, FNC, MSNBC,
definite
ABC,
maybe.
CBS,
yeah,
NBC?
It's a definite maybe. Yeah.
Maybe?
Ooh, look at the time here, Don. There's a commercial. I'm sure that we have to go to at this
It's
point.
a definite maybe?
Yes.
Any more than that? People break a lot of news on this show.
And I have with you on your show. I love being on here, but more on that later.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
Soon to